I just have to ask, what's it like to not only be officially part of the Tom Clancy universe, but doing so while playing such a key role, the key role of Karen Greer?
You know, it's really very exciting. And it's exciting to be in a film with a black lead in Michael B. Jordan. You know, like reimagining that character in that way. It's fun to be a part of something in this genre, which I so love. You know, obviously the Tom Clancy universe is well known and well loved, and it's cool to just join those ranks, you know.
It means a lot, man. You know, like for me as a child of the late 80s and 90s and growing up on the classics, you know, growing up on Hunt for Red October and Patriot Games and Clear and Present Danger and these movies that I watched as a child, weirdly, you know, I was so, because it felt like it wasn't fiction. It felt like it was kind of nonfiction, you know, because of the amount of kind of input and the amount of accuracy that I think Tom Clancy has into these worlds and these institutions was really intriguing, even to me as a child. So to read this script, which very much brings it up to a, you know, makes it current and dusts it off a little bit and makes it kind of intriguing and exciting. It's cinematic legacy. And so to me, to be involved in that was immensely exciting. Very exciting.
I feel really blessed and honored, very honored and excited.
Senior Chief John Kelly is more dangerous and effective than any man we have in the field. The only thing he has more than kills are medals.
So what about the story ultimately drew you to be a part of this film?
I really love the character. You know, I love the idea of this woman who's so strong and fierce and intensely loyal and was leading this team. You know, what that would have meant to her and who that meant that she had to be to get to that place. I thought it was interesting. I always relished the opportunity to play strong Black women on screen. I love when I get to play a woman who's not there to just be eye candy or a love interest, but someone who is fiercely protective and loyal to her friend and deeply in love with this idea of justice.
I wasn't familiar with this character, not until I read the script. And what drew me to it was just what happens to her in the film and how she continuously shows up in the film as a guiding light, as a force, as an entity and energy. I really loved that.
Okay, so your character doesn't appear in the books, so you're basically building her from scratch. How did you mold Karen? And were there other characters either in the books or outside the Clancy series that you used for inspiration?
Well, I really was inspired by, you know, a man who actually does what she does. I really wanted to examine what that personality is like and who that person was. And I was so pleased and surprised and interested to find that there was such a warmth and an openness to this person. And so I thought, what better traits to bring to a woman in this role?
Well, as you mentioned, we, like with Clear Present Danger and things like that, we've seen Ritter appear in those films. How is your take different from previous incarnations that we've seen?
Well, I mean, it's my understanding that the other iterations of the character, he's very much behind a desk. He's very much a character who is a kind of almost Wizard of Oz kind of character behind a curtain pulling strings to a degree. And this iteration is very much someone who, yes, he straddles that DC bureaucratic world, but at the same time, he's very much on the front lines and calling the shots and, you know, toe-to-toe with John Kelly as well. So I like that about this. It took him out of DC for a second, put him in the dirt and put him in the grime and put him amongst the bullets and the explosions. I thought that was kind of an interesting way into this character, especially in the way that he ends up in the film as well.
So that's what I was going to say. Your character serves as the linchpin for the story, and you have to establish a connection with the audience and the characters very quickly. How did you approach Penn Kelly from an acting standpoint?
I think just being honest in my scenes, because I'm not a good liar, and I think that the audience sees when you're lying and when you don't believe in it, right? So I just wanted to get to be open with my heart and be vulnerable, and to not be afraid to show those sides of myself in the second minute, in each scene.
So what was it like working alongside Michael B. Jordan, and how did you guys establish, a chemistry with the brief amount of screen time that you guys have together?
We actually are good friends. We've been good friends for a while. And so it was just like working with a brother and someone that I've known for a while. So there wasn't an awkward, we don't know each other. We know each other well. And he is been a good friend of our family for a while. And so it was familiar.
Okay, you kick all kinds of butt in this movie. I just have to say that. And how did you prepare for such a physically demanding role?
Well, I did train. I watched as best as possible, and while still being respectful of the fact that I was very pregnant doing it, and also we worked with, we had guys with us on set that were constantly advising us, making sure that the way that we were moving through space, the way that we were holding our weapons, shooting our weapons, working together as a team, all of those things were the way that it should be done.
Ritter is a CIA operative who does what he believes is necessary to accomplish the bigger picture. Do you empathize with him, or do you fear a guy like him?
Oh, he's very fearful, I think. Yeah. Because he has ambition. And I think his ambition is very scary, especially in someone who works in that capacity. But here's the thing. The thing for me in the movie was Stefano, our director, one of his first notes to me was, I never want to know what he's thinking, and I never want to know what he wants. So I always had that in the back of my mind, but I was always like, what is the conflict between me and John? Like, what is it inherently that sets us against each other from the very beginning? And the more I thought about it was, I think Robert is very analytical, thinks about things and like really considers them. And John is someone who acts on instinct. And I think those two things, environment, do not work well together. And I always thought like that's the thing that I disrespect about him, is the way he handles himself in those environments and those theaters. So that was kind of like the genesis and the beginning of the character for me.
And so how much freedom were you given to expand the characters you saw fix? Like you said, she appears here and there, almost like Kelly's conscience in a way.
Yeah.
And so how much were you able to expand that character in the brief time that you have on screen?
The director, Stefano and Michael, they were just very, they pushed to be as open, what felt right as I could. So if it was a line that didn't feel right, and if this line felt better and more truthful to you, they allowed that freedom.
And then how would you say this film differs from other Tom Clancy films we've seen in the past, like Clear and Present Danger or Patriot Games or The Sum of All Fears, stuff like that?
I think that obviously, there's our film, it isn't exactly like what the book that it's based on is about. But I think like at its essence, it's really similar to those other films. I mean, in some ways, people kind of talk about John Kelly as sort of like, a darker, grittier Jack Ryan, but it does have that element of, I think the stakes maybe are a little bit, there's definitely a lot more interesting and like darker action that goes on, but I think the biggest difference is to be Black leads in this film, and so it's really fun to see these characters take on these situations and go through these adventures.
My final question too is, you're involved in a couple of big action scenes. How did you prepare? Like, as you mentioned, you're not behind the desk. How did you prepare for such a physically demanding role?
Listen, we work with ex-Navy SEALs. We work with people who've served in the military, who do a lot of kind of advising on films like this, and their experience and input is just completely invaluable. We did room clearing exercises. We did exercises with weapons and clearing weapons and weapon jams and switching weapons and all this stuff. So they really put us through it. For me, I was always like, this type of stuff is always team building for cast members, when you first arrive or wherever you're shooting. But I was always like, I don't want to be part of a team because my character isn't part of a team. He's very much in it for himself to a degree. He's serving an exterior kind of institution. So I always kind of wanted to be at the back. I always wanted people to not trust me. I always wanted people to question what I was doing. But needless to say, as an actor, all that stuff is really fun. And you're just fulfilling dreams of when you were like 6 years old, running around with a gun and stuff. So, but invaluable. The experience was invaluable. And the input from the experts was invaluable.
And so in your opinion, considering everything that happens to him and to you, do you think Kelly's actions in the films are justified?
I think that, his loss and his pain, he's grieving. Who am I to say if they were justified? I think everyone grieves in different ways. And that's what I think makes, that's what makes John Kelly, he lost a lot. I mean, I don't know how, your child, I think he's acting on his pain.
Because the movie, I think, really does reflect, it makes you think, because in the end, it is a revenge thriller. But I do think a lot of the actions that he does take are, in a sense, justified considering what happens to him. But at the same time, maybe he goes a little too far. Would you agree with that?
I don't know. I guess that's just, that would be up for debate.
What the hell is going on here? What's the real mission?
They brought that war into my house. They're gonna play by my rules now. No remorse.
Cause I'm sucker. So dangerous.